BRN, where educators share what works.
I've come up with a system, a bit like when my kids were small and you think they might be lying, where did the cookies go? Look at me in the eye. I do this with ChatGPT. So I say, are you really sure? Are you sure this is really aligned to this? And it will give me a checklist and explain why. That doesn't sound right to me. Are you really sure? I go through about 3 iterations and then I ask it to pull out the exact information. And then I can cross-reference that as well. But I go through the cookie situation with the kids, the same with AI, double-checking the whole time.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning.
It's been a while since we've been able to get together. Caroline, what have you been doing lately with AI?
Lots of things. Lots and lots of things. And I'm all excited about it. So I suppose the starting point for what I've been doing at the moment is I'm really interested in the UNESCO AI competency framework for students. And I've actually been integrating this into the course I'm currently teaching. And I'm having so much fun integrating the AI CFS into this, because the topic of forensic linguistics is obviously being massively changed in the age of AI. And it's a case-based course, so I've got all the original cases that we used to look at. And now we're visiting them. Half the class we spend looking at what happened in the traditional case. And then the second half of the course, we're looking at what would happen now in the age of AI. What tools would be used? How may they be used? What are the ethics of this? Are we seeing a shift from traditional investigation and court cases towards more AI-supported investigations and then the evidence in court cases? And so each lesson, as I type my ideas into ChatGPT, I'm putting in those traditional cases that we looked at. I'm uploading the AI CFS, and then I'm saying, which of these competencies do you think are relevant to this lesson? And then I'm trying to weave those in to the lesson. And then I'm, for each case we do, I'm building a suggested project. My students will choose one project towards the end of the course based on one of the cases, where again, they look at the original case and the outcome, how AI is changing this, through which tools and how. And then they have a real life task they have to do. It could be an AI-generated avatar of themselves giving a warning about deep fakes, that kind of thing. So I've managed to weave it into everything. And then I'm also finding relevant tools that I'm embedding into the lessons each week. So I'm very excited about that. That's what I've been up to.
Wow. That's cool.
So it sounds like you're using it more like a think partner and not just somebody that's there to say, hey, you've done a great job, but somebody that's going to challenge you and really help you to analyze what it is you are creating so that it is the best thing that you could possibly make for the classes you teach.
Absolutely. And I go through tons and tons of iterations. And then I say, what am I missing? What am I missing from this framework? Is there something relevant that I should put in? Do my activities thoroughly cover all of the aspects? And then I do the same for the projects as well. It's a think partner. It absolutely is. And that's how I'm using it. And I am so happy with the outcome for the planning of these units, but also the delivery. The feedback I'm getting from my students is really good. It feels really relevant. They're engaged. And we're finding tons of useful AI tools as well, which I'm finding from conversations about this framework and with ChatGPT. So yeah, it's really working as a great think partner.
Oh my gosh, Caroline, that is so amazing. Well, what have I been up to? Whole lot of alphabet soup. All right, let me explain what that means. I applied for COSIN and AESA's lead AI trainer for the nation. They were looking for 10 to 20 people who are going to be lead trainers on their K through 12 AI Maturity Toolkit. And I was selected to be one of 13 who were chosen. We're going to be trained on the Maturity Toolkit, which I actually was already trained. And then we're going to train regional trainers. It is a step to help districts implement AI. There are different domains, and most importantly, and where I think we've had this discussion before, it really starts with looking at the leadership domain. What artifacts, evidence do you already have, policies in place, things that you want to do, and then now we take all of that information and we make a timeline, a roadmap to help you implement. So it's not just handing you a piece of paper with a policy, it's really walking you through. So this is so exciting because this is what we've been wanting to do in my agency with our districts. So now I actually have a school that said, yes, I can pilot this with them so I can increase my learning to help others. So I'm always so happy I have us, but now I've met so many other people around the nation and within my state. So that aligns with my standards to talk to help me work through helping other teachers. So yeah, a lot of stuff.
That's a lot, but that's all fantastic. Congratulations on all.
Thank you. I'm so tired.
Well, John, what have you been up to?
This is the time of year where a lot of annual IEP reviews come into play, and which means I'm also constructing new IEPs for the upcoming year. And I've been using AI a lot to help me write these goals. Now, obviously, I take out personal information when I put things on, but just the generic goals. And what I've found AI helps me with is asking, say, okay, this kid has met this goal. What would be a goal for the upcoming year? And then besides that, what I do is I say, okay, give me 3 objectives for that. And in the beginning, a lot of times it would give me objectives that weren't really specific as far as it might say, okay, objective A, the student meets it 3 out of 10 times. Objective B, 5 out of 10. Objective C, 7 out of 10. And I said, no, don't just change the numbers. I want to have a skill that builds. So for example, if a kid's learning to read, it might change it. So if I prompt it differently, it might say, okay, have the kid first learn phonemes, then have them learn digraphs and blends, then have them learn multisyllabic words with phonemes and with digraphs and blends. But I found that's been very helpful with these goals. Or if a kid hasn't met a goal, I'll say, okay, this child hasn't met the goal, but they're moving on to the next grade level. What's a goal that would make sense? And it's been incredibly helpful. Besides that, a lot of times there's specific things we have to put in the IEP goal. For example, we have to put in conditions, behavior, time frame, methods of assessment, and criteria. And what I've found is there's times where I might mess up and forget one of those things. And so I'll say, okay, make sure you put the 5. I can literally say, once I've done it once, I can say, put the 5 things in there for this goal. And then I move on to the next goal. What I have found so impressive, I can literally say, here's the kid's goal, do it again like the other one. I don't even need to type out all the words, all the criteria. It's so impressive to me that it can do that and remember as if it's like my personal notepad that knows what I'm thinking and what I need.
Well, one of the things that I think about, especially with writing IEP goals, is oftentimes they seem very generic. Different students' IEPs, sometimes the same goal shows up. Right. Do you find that using the AI allows you to be more specific and tailor it better than what you were able to do before?
I think it does, and I thought the exact same thing until I became a special educator. And then what I realized is that a lot of times we're writing goals for kids that don't have certain basic skills, and I think that's why they sound so bland sometimes. Because I know what you're saying. Before I became a special educator, I used to look at goals and think, wow, these are bland.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, John, along with sometimes the goals are bland, I find that we pick tools for students to work with. We get the data from those tools, and then the way to help students move forward, I can find that bland. Like, oh, so what are we going to do to help with reading comprehension or, understanding the text or something like that. And kind of sometimes I watch people just put students on another tool that's just, click, 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 click. And I'll say, well, why don't we do something kind of creative? So I've used AI to, like you said, scrap all the personal identifiable information, but to take a look at maybe a class, a school, a grade, and find out what the strengths were according to that data, the areas of growth. And then I'll say, can you take a look at all of their technology tools that have been approved by that district, and can you help me make some engaging lessons and suggestions that would be interactive, like say using BrainPop not just to watch the video, but they have a make a movie part in a section. Wouldn't that help with comprehension if a student watched the movie but then made their own movie? Like there's that creative part. And so I put those together to give suggestions to the tech specialists in the district so that they can work with teachers to come up with some different creative ways. So AI is helping to analyze that data, but then also come up with some creative ways to help move students forward based on the specific needs that they have.
That's a great idea. I like that. I think it would be more relevant to the kid as well. That's good.
John, have you had an opportunity to even use AI to evaluate the effectiveness of an IEP or the goals that were set? Like, were those goals met based on the data that a classroom teacher has provided, or the grades that the students are getting, the interactions that you're having? And have you altered an IEP based on that information?
I haven't had that chance yet, no, to be honest with you, no. I'd like to say that I have, but I haven't.
Dan, you got a lot of questions for us. What are you doing over there? What's happening?
Well, a lot. I've been using AI to enhance student writing. That's one of the adjustments that I've made in my classroom. And I know that's been a big fear for many teachers, is how can I make sure that my students are actually doing the writing and not just using an AI to write for them. But the way I've structured it is the students have to write out a summary, and then they type their summary into the school AI chatbot that I've made, and it then provides them with a revision so they can see an upgraded version of what they just wrote. So it's still based on their ideas, but then they get to read good writing and to start to see, oh, I could write sentences like that for the next time. And then they ask the AI, what suggestions do you have for my writing? And it's able to provide them with that feedback. And it talks about, using transitional words, enhancing their topic sentence or their conclusions. And then they ask the chatbot, what's one goal that you would like to see me grow in for my next piece of writing? And it helps them set a goal. And so then the students will take that goal, they'll put it at the top of their paper for their next summary, and they know that as they write, this is the goal that they're working on. And so it really puts that goal as their focus, and instead of the AI circumventing the writing process, it's enhancing it. Now the students are reading the feedback that's given to be able to set a goal so that I can see the goal at the top of their writing, and I'm still looking at what they've actually handwritten. Then I read through the revision and I ask the student, so what did you think of what the AI suggested? And it allows them to be reflective. So it enhances the whole writing process in ways that there's no possible way I could have had the time to meet with every single student every single day and do that. So those are some of the ways I've gone about using AI here recently. But I do have to say my students, because they know now that they have to do AI revisions and things like that. We're coming up on teacher appreciation, and a lot of times our students write letters to their teachers. And they said that they're going to write me letters, but then they're going to have AI revisions so that I get AI written letters. And I'm like, all right, that's fine, as long as I can see your original writing.
I love it though. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm really excited about, I feel like I've grown a lot. And that's cool for me. And I feel that our districts are growing because they're asking the questions and they want our support. But, and this is going to sound a little skeptical, is this really going to help us with our digital divide? Are they really going to let us help them infuse tools that are going to truly help children? Are all children going to have access? How can I help them recognize that this is so important? I mean, even listen to where I am. I'm at a start, and where Caroline is, and how we're all so vastly different. And then, and my last question, I guess, is my thought of, if we are disbanding, if we are ending the Department of Education, what is that going to mean? And what is that going to mean for the safety of our students using tools, having access to tools, and just where is AI gonna go for our students? So, all right, I'm excited, but I'm also still a little, I don't know, unsure. Does any of that make sense for anyone else?
Sure.
Definitely. So, Julie, the question that's really bothering me a lot still is, how is AI affecting learning? Because there are no longitudinal studies about this. It's been too fast. It's just hit us. And so I think we're going to discover this in a few years' time. And I was asked this question by the Dean of Education. I gave a presentation about the UNESCO AI competency framework for teachers in a meeting the other day. And he was asking about AI pedagogy. And he said, what does that mean, Caroline? In that document, what does it actually mean? Is it constructivist? How does it work? And I said, with AI pedagogy, it's really, the basics of it is how we use it. So when I said I could plan an entire course with integrated AI in it, and my students would learn nothing if I use it in the wrong way. And I could plan the same course, but approach it in a different way, and my students would learn a lot. And the simplest thing I've come down to is that it's human first, me first, student first, AI second. If we don't scaffold through start with ourselves without AI-free zones, and gradually start to use it in ways for support or ideas or feedback, and then you can get into the really transformative stuff. But if we don't go through those stages, and if we don't teach our students the dangers of how AI can steal our learning, if we're not using it in a critical way, then I think it could really bypass learning. I think there's a massive challenge. And Julie, you mentioned digital divide. I think, there's the potential for a huge digital divide, but not just based on access to technology. It's also based on how students are taught to use it. And if they're not taught to use it in a way that helps them build their learning, it's just going to bypass learning, and we're going to end up with students that get to the end of a course or school or whatever, and they have no learning at all. They've got the certificate, they have no learning. So that's a different type of digital divide. Those are my questions.
Even just bouncing off what you said, the research that's out right now, a lot of it is from companies. So, right, we don't really have all that peer-reviewed research, but we do have things that are out there that people are using. But how well vetted are they? Or, yeah, you're right. I think about the research that's out there too. John, what are you thinking? What are your questions?
I guess a couple. The first thing for me is I'm wondering, and this is just a basic, simple question, how often is AI wrong? So in other words, when I put in something to help me or for an IEP, how often are there little mistakes in there? Which means how often do I have to go back and really spend almost more time double checking something to make sure it's not
That's a
wrong?
good question.
Because I've grown to assume, just like we do when we're kids with our parents, everything our parents say is correct. Well, everything AI says is correct, and we know that's not the case. We still have to check it. So sometimes, is it more work to put something into AI because, we don't know, and it spits it out so fast? I think a second thing is, can students become too dependent on it? I can tell you there's a couple times recently where I was writing IEPs and something happened. I forget, either my computer locked up or ChatGPT went down, but somehow it wasn't working on my computer. And I froze. I was so angry that I couldn't go back to it and use it. It's like, I don't know what to do now. I've been using this for the last hour to write these goals and objectives, and now it's not working. Are my brain muscles, atrophying? And so I think that's the danger. That's the danger we can see with students. I think sometimes I think Caroline may have been alluding to that as well. It can be dangerous if we become too dependent on it. So that's what I'm wondering right now. How often is it wrong? And am I becoming too dependent on it? And if I do, will I lose these skills? Am I making a huge jump?
John, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that idea of how often is it wrong? Because when we've interacted with different experts in different fields and we ask a question, the fact that they can give an immediate answer shows their authority in it, because they just know stuff and they can, spout it off at the drop of a hat. And that's what the AI does. It spouts stuff off at the drop of a hat, and we just assume it is the authority. It knows. Obviously, it has an answer. It's great. And especially when it makes a logical response. You're like, okay, I can get that. I understand that.
But is it the right answer? That's the
Is
thing.
it the right answer? Yeah.
And I found that to be the case. This is not classroom related, but I've been using AI a lot for Teachers Aid podcasts, from a podcast that I do. But I also want to make sure, I need to double check my sources to make sure that it's accurate. And it's, that goes along with that.
I've come across this morning, is it giving me the right stuff? Right. And I've come up with a system, a bit like when my kids were small and you think they might be lying, where did the cookies go? Who's had the cookies? Look at me in the eye. Are you really? Are you absolutely sure?
I see crumbs.
I can see crumbs, yeah. That doesn't look right to me. I think there's evidence here. I do this with ChatGPT. So I say, are you really sure? And it will then, are you sure this is really aligned to this? And it will give me a checklist and explain why. That doesn't sound right to me. Are you really sure? I go through about 3 iterations and then I ask it to pull out the exact information. And then I'm happier with it. I can cross-reference that as well. But I go through the cookie situation with the kids, the same with AI, double-checking the whole time. I like
Go ahead.
I really like Notebook LM because you're uploading the source material and it's referencing that source material, and then it cites. It'll give like a little number, and you just hover over the number and it shows you in the original source material, this is where I referenced this. And I think that makes that a really powerful tool beyond just the generic AI platforms, but the fact that it can pull specifically from the documents and say, this is where I got it.
It's just 2 things, I think, maybe before we go, and I don't mean to be like the SNL Debbie Downer, but some of the research that quote-unquote experts, humans, are putting out there is not always necessarily the truth either. And so I think we just have to do our due diligence like we've always. Librarian. I love a librarian, right? Go check our sources. Whether it's human written, whether it's AI written, are we checking our sources? Are we, sometimes I'll even ask, say, ChatGPT, and then maybe I'll ask Copilot, and then, just a few different AIs to get an answer to something too. And I know we've been doing that, but I think it's something that we just have to remember. Just because it's written doesn't mean that it's true. And we just need to be diligent in checking our sources and teaching students the media literacy, the importance of checking sources as well.
I think that could be a big impediment to a lot of people jumping on, because they're like, you know what, if I've got to look it up and cross-reference and ask it 3 different iterations, depending on what level we're using it for, it's not worth my time. So I have found recently that a lot of times I'll use it for things where good enough is good enough. And I don't mean rating an IEP. I want that to be as good as possible, but I use it for things where okay is good enough, some basic tasks that are going to help me save some time. Because I can see a lot of teachers hearing this or reading about this, or someone tells them that and they're thinking, well, you know what, forget it then. I'm not going to do 5 different cross-references.
Well, geez, I hope as teachers they do.
I wouldn't
will
if I'm
tell
a
you-
teacher. I'm not going to lie. If I had to do 5 different cross-references,
Well, not necessarily 5, but I hope there was at least a cross-reference to make sure that something was valid.
One of the things that I think is important is that even if teachers don't want to use it, there are times when they're going to interact with it and not even know it.
Yeah.
And I ran into this situation on LinkedIn, and I got a message from someone, and I responded, and it responded right away with a little emoji after the first sentence. And I was like, that's weird, because I know AI's overuse of emoji.
Oh, yes.
So I started having this conversation going back and forth, only to realize this was a bot that I was talking to. This wasn't a person who was trying to, actually engage me. I was talking to an AI agent that was trying to solicit business, and I was like getting super frustrated that they weren't actually listening to my responses. And I was like, oh my gosh. But the fact that I've used AI enough to recognize some of those hallmarks of their interactions and what it produces, if you didn't do that, you would have no idea.
Can I suggest that that's the next topic? How I've been duped or whatever, or I don't know, just something.
That's the topic of my upcoming lesson, actually, Julie. It was the Tom Hanks. There was a clone of him in a dental.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So we're doing a whole lesson on deep fakes and how we can be taken in by it.
So I think we've definitely rounded out this conversation, and we all still have some questions, some things that we're curious about. Where is AI headed? What are we doing with it? I think that we just have a lot that we still need to learn, that there's still some unknowns that exist. So I'm looking forward to, next time when we get together to see again how we've grown, what we've learned along the way, because this is constantly changing. As fast as AI changes, so does our understanding of it. So who's picking up the check?
The AI.
Oh, if only. I'll get it this week.
All right, thanks, Caroline.
thank you.
Great.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're a principal, superintendent, technologist, or CTO looking for creative ways to kickstart conversations about generative AI with your team, head over to Hacking Gen AI in Education to access a growing library of stimulating conversation starters. Just click the link in the show notes or go to hackinggenai.org to start relevant conversations that will engage your entire team and take your AI discussions to the next level. Till next time, keep the conversation going.